This week in Buffalo Sports, Buffalo Sports page. I'm Stu Boyar along with Bud Bailey and Tony Fiorello. Today's show is sponsored by the Paul Wolf Insurance Agency, Logistics Plus of Buffalo, and Dan Chacha Personal Injury Attorneys. And right off the top, some big news coming out of One Bills Drive. Khalil Shakir gets a nice contract extension. Good move by the Bills. And I don't think we should be overly concerned about the James Cook situation. I have a feeling they're going to get him done. But I think it's very good news on Shakir.
Sounded like Shakir realized there was a line here. And with a team with salary cap issues, I think he told his agent, let's get this done quick. Let's not let it go to chance.
And if you want to talk about any of the misses they might have had drafting, that he was, what, a fifth-round pick?
Something like that.
Okay, well, that's a pretty big hit.
Yeah.
You know, great yards after catch, a key piece of that offense, and good for him.
A lot of people have projected him to make only about, to make about 17, 18 million this year. To think of the fact that his average annual value is only going to be about 15 million, that's a win.
Well, he's a win. He's a winning player. He's fun to watch. He catches almost everything that's thrown his way. He's just an outstanding, and I think at this point still an underrated wide receiver. And then there's the James Cook situation where he asked for an ungodly amount of money, which you can't blame anybody for. But
never hurts to ask.
No. And from listening to Brandon Beane, who fortunately did not have a knee-jerk reaction to that kind of thing, I have a funny feeling they'll figure out a way to get something done.
Yeah, he knows how to bridge gaps. Let's just say that. I mean, he'll figure out a good salary for a good number for himself and for Cook and his agents. So,
because Cook is a very key piece to that offense. I mean, they ran an awful lot more, and he had an outstanding year. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you can do contracts, but I think you mentioned it last week. You can put in all kinds of different incentives.
Signing bonus and incentives, right?
You know, and I imagine that's what they'll do. But I think they're in pretty good shape.
And I think good GMs get deals done.
Yes, that's perfect.
Which is the bottom line. And the Bills haven't had a long history of guys hitting a stone wall and demanding to be traded and moving elsewhere. I think that's part of the thing that appeals to me about this front office is that they're really good in these matters.
Right, they're proactive. And,
yeah.
And like you say, they know how to get things done. They made a change at the special teams coaching position. They made a change at strength and conditioning, so they kind of flipped some spots on the coaching staff.
I
defy
anyone to tell me what the difference is going to be.
Well, you're not going to get that from me,
right?
But Chris Tabor he's had some very good units on special teams over the last few years. I think he automatically becomes the best guy who's coached that unit for Sean McDermott because when he came in, he had Danny Crossman. He had him for a couple of years. That didn't work. Let him go. Then he had two first-timers in Heath Farwell and Matthew Smiley, and neither one of those guys worked out. But I think Tabor's got a good reputation. So
let's hope so. But and also they have some other coaches, defensive backs coach from the Patriots, whose name slips my mind.
Mike Pellegrino. Yep.
But the other thing, as far as special teams go, nowadays your rosters are so much different. So you're not going to get too many starters. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get the top. Well, I don't want to say top players, but special teams are always going to be dicey, just because.
Yeah, but the other thing is that a lot of the first year coordinators or the first time coordinators, I should say, that McDermott had on that side of the ball, Farwell was, Smiley was, a big problem with them was communication. That's what led to 13 seconds happening, especially on that kickoff.
McDermott off the hook for that one?
Well, I mean, they're both at fault. But, I mean, there was that Broncos game on Monday night where there was only, 10 guys on the field, whatever it was. 12. There was 12 guys on the field. And a couple times this year where there's been miscommunication when it comes to, doing certain things or whatever on special teams. But, I mean, Tabor's a veteran guy. He's been around the block. So, I mean, they should at least improve in that area,
Well, let's hope it makes a big difference because at times special teams did hurt that team. Speaking of special teams, they're discussing the dynamic kickoff and moving the touchback to the 35-yard line. So if you kick it out of the end zone, the other team gets the ball at the 35. Now, personally, I like the old-fashioned kickoffs much better. And when you have to declare an onside kick and you can only do it in the fourth quarter, I mean, think of the Super Bowl between the Saints and the Colts. What was the play of the game? Sean Payton called an onside kick that nobody saw coming. You take that out of the game. I'm just not a big fan of. I get it, safety. Obviously, I want everybody to be as safe as possible, but it's a violent, physical sport. You'll never make it completely 100% safe. But I appreciate the effort.
I'd like to know if the kickoffs got safer this year with this rule. It's because it sure doesn't feel right when you watch.
I heard someone on radio say that there were a 35% reduction in concussions.
Yeah,
I don't know how
I saw that
accurate that is. Do I believe it?
That could be league wide for everybody.
They said
Yeah.
kickoffs.
Okay.
But I don't remember who I was listening to or how accurate it is. If that's true, great. That's a
yeah.
very, very good thing.
Step forward. Yep.
From an entertainment value, I just like it the old-fashioned way a lot better.
Yeah.
But obviously, I want people to be safe.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that work in that area, and like you mentioned, I mean, there's some things that are kind of, questionable. Like you mentioned the whole, onside thing where you have to declare it in the fourth quarter. I mean, I agree. I kind of like the whole, surprise aspect of it, but
Think of the comeback game for the Bills.
yeah,
I mean,
yep. But I mean, another thing that they were talking about was potentially moving the kickoff back to the 30, which is where they had it. I want to say from like 94 up until about 10 years ago or so, and then they moved it to the 35. And guess what happened? Touchbacks went up like crazy.
I think the whole idea eventually is to get the kickoff out of the game.
Yeah,
That's what I think it is.
which stinks because a great return is great entertainment.
Yeah, you're not.
It's phenomenal. That could swing a
It's a
game.
very
At what
exciting play.
price?
With that, yeah, and it's always going to be the best.
I wondered if we were headed to basketball where one team scores, the other team gets the ball out of bounds essentially, and they just put it on the 25-yard line and start it there and give up.
So essentially, you're making it like college football overtime
Ugh.
to some degree, right? You scored, now you get the ball.
on your own 25 as
Yeah.
opposed to the other 25.
I really,
But if people are getting hurt that badly, then why are we doing it? I guess is the point.
well, but you could say any snap, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Do you really think after every snap along the line of scrimmage, there's concussions on every play, right? Just by the fact that you have a 350-pound man going against a 350-pound man,
At least potentially.
right? So you're never going to get.
It's an auto accident every play.
Yeah, it is, right? So I don't have the answers. I just like the old. I'm an old-fashioned guy in some ways, and I like the old-fashioned kickoffs. But that's not going to make one iota of difference. It just isn't.
They should put you on the committee, Stu.
No, they wouldn't like half the things.
The voice of reason.
Well, thank you. No one's ever called me that. Would you like to tell that to my wife? I better get out of that. So.
Good idea.
Let's we'll get to the Sabres in the next segment, but first, the Four Nations, the championship game between Team USA and Team Canada. Fabulous hockey game, great hockey game, and Canada and who else but Connor McDavid won it in overtime. But I take it we all watched it and enjoyed it.
And McDavid didn't do much.
No, he even said he was horrible.
Yeah. In fact, I saw somebody on Twitter say that the Boston police had a missing persons report out for him.
I mean, what they
In the middle of the game, this went out.
well, they should have given, in my opinion, the player of the game was actually Jordan Binnington.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yes.
And I was like, what are we doing here? It was like a guy scored a goal, he won the game. Yeah, okay, great. but if Binnington's not there, he robbed Austin Matthews 3 straight times.
Yep.
And my other thing that a lot of people here don't like Jack Eichel, but Austin Matthews lost track of Connor McDavid, who's wide open. And as good as Connor Hellebuck is, he's come on, that's Connor McDavid. So,
Yeah.
so if Mike Sullivan had perhaps switched back to Jack Eichel on that line, maybe they're still playing.
Yeah. Bottom line is you can't leave the best player in the world wide open in the slot. It's
About that.
It's common sense, I mean, thanks, Austin Matthews. No wonder Toronto's been losing the first round every year.
It was funny because that was exactly my thought.
I was so hoping that Sidney Crosby would do something in overtime to make me look good from what I said last week.
Yeah.
That he had one more miracle in his pocket.
I was texting with a friend, picking the who was going to get the game winner, and I texted Sidney Crosby. He's just a great player, class act. I really like and respect him. Tage Thompson didn't step on the ice. He was left out of the. Did he deserve to be in there? And here's the thing: Team USA played great without him. Now you could, pick apart their selection process and the whole 9 yards. It would have been great to see him out there, but they made it to the championship game in overtime without him.
Yep.
So, what's the argument?
I guess if you're a fan of Thompson, you want to see him play at that level, but he hasn't. He right now he's not playing as well as he did 2 years ago, and last year he had injury problems and so forth. And I guess it's just there's not many spots.
No,
Yeah.
and really, how many spots do you take, and what's the selection based on? Do they look at the first however many games of the season and say,
Trying to put together a team in that sense, and in the traditional way of scoring lines 1 and 2, and then checkers 3 and spare parts 4.
Yeah.
so who are the other centers? Eichel, Matthews.
Michaels Matthews, Vincent Trocheck, Dylan Larkin. Who else do they have? They have Brock Nelson from the Islanders. But you could argue a couple.
Would you trade Thompson for Eichel,
No.
Matthews, Larkin?
No.
Three centers? That's pretty good.
I would trade him for Trocheck
Yeah.
or Nelson. You could also argue there are a couple guys
But
who.
that's a third and fourth line guy.
Yeah, but another argument I'd like to use is
And I like Tage, don't get me wrong.
right. But if you look at, I remember back in the 2006 Olympics, right? I know we're going a while back here, but Canada didn't do so hot in that tournament, right? Remember who they had on their roster that year? Chris Draper. Now, Chris Draper was a great fourth line center, right? Great penalty killer in the NHL, right? Does he really belong on Hockey Canada?
Well, was that his Steve Yzerman team? Because
Gretzky built that team.
Who did?
Gretzky.
Yeah, well, Gretzky must have seen something that he liked.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
98 Canada.
Sometimes you like grinders.
98 Canada. Bobby Clark was the general manager of that team. They had a guy on that team by the name of Rob Zaminer. Nobody remembers him, and that's for good reason. Why was he on that team?
So when did Yzerman take over? After 2006, when they had a bad year, then he came back and Crosby goal in 2010.
Yep, that was
against
2010.
Ryan Miller?
Yep, that's when Yzerman took over. Yeah.
Okay.
But
One thing, getting back to Thompson for a second, I think it's fair to say that players from good teams
yes,
have a better chance of doing something.
yeah.
I think that's great.
I think a lot of GMs like winners.
Yeah.
And Thompson, from no fault of his own, hasn't shown that he's maybe of that level yet, even though you could probably switch him with a top player in the league and switch teams, and maybe Thompson would have similar levels. But I think that hurts him in an overall discussion of who are the elite players.
I think you're 100% correct. Just look at Eichel. Look at Reinhardt. Do I need to keep on going? That's a great point, bud.
And it's not even just Tage. There were a lot of good players left off of Team USA. Look at Jason Robertson on Dallas. He was left off, and so was Cole Caulfield in Montreal. Either one of those guys you could have argued could have been on that team too. So it's not just Tage.
Well, then again, like I said, they made it to the finals and they lost in overtime.
Yep. So
it's pretty hard to argue.
You got to nitpick if you lose by 1 goal. So.
Well, I guess that's what we in the media just do.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the Sabres. And you are watching Buffalo Sports Page.
Buffalo Breathe Now, Western New York's newest respiratory urgent care and walk-in clinic, located at 6161 Transit Road in East Amherst, New York. Open 7 days a week. Visit buffalobreathenow.com or call 716-320-0180. Find us on Facebook and Instagram, buffalobreathenow.com.
Need an electrician? Empire Electric is your residential wiring specialist. New builds, service upgrades, lighting, generators, you name it, Empire does it with hundreds of 5-star reviews that speak for themselves. Call Empire Electric today for your free estimate.
Just results. Your life can change in an instant after an injury. You need a trusted partner at your side. Hi, I'm Dan Chacha. At Dan Chacha Injury Attorneys, we're here to help you navigate the challenges you'll face. Our dedicated team fights tirelessly for your rights, ensuring you get the compensation you deserve. Don't worry, Chacha's got you. Call Dan Chacha Injury Attorneys today for a free consultation. Your injury is our priority.
Call 648-3030. Just results.
Seek your next adventure. Make your next memory. Explore your next connection. What will you do next?
Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Page. He's Bud Bailey. He's Tony Fiorello. I'm Stu Boyar. Believe it or not, the Buffalo Sabres are 6-4 in their last 10. They've won 5 out of 6 and 2 in a row coming out of the Four Nations break. What's going on? I mean, it's great. Keep it up.
They're going to blow a better chance at the first draft pick, I think.
And go figure it happens when there's no pressure on them.
Well, and this, if this is a year not to have the first overall, if there's a year not to have the first overall pick, this might be it. The Rangers game, 5-goal explosion. Second time this year they've chased Shesterkin. Figure that one out, right? Really good goaltender, and they chased him twice. I went to the game last night with my daughter, down 2-0. Played a really good first period. They had nothing to show for it. Horrendous second period and a great third period. I was stunned. 3 goals in the third to come from behind and win. That was impressive, and it was fun to watch. And as I told my daughter, I said, you know, what people have to understand is if this team starts winning, the crowds will come back. They'll be raucous. People in this town love this team, and they hate what's happened to it. So,
How many people were there last night?
I didn't see what the attendance was.
I saw some empty seats when
There
I
were
passed
plenty
by.
of empty seats, unfortunately, but it's a Tuesday night against
Anaheim, right.
which is no excuse. If you're winning, you'll pack the place.
Right.
But what this team, what this franchise has done to their fan base is, well, we all know it's beyond awful. But
I give the fans a lot of credit for resilience.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know how many other cities would, especially this size market, would support the team as well as it's been.
well, put it this way: if we look at certain teams, Boston's not having a great typical Boston year.
Mm-hmm.
They already fired their coach. I mean, it's how much is ownership willing to tolerate, I think, becomes the question. And if fans start staying away in droves, then you would think their tolerance would go down, which is kind of your point. But I don't know, just Lindy Ruff, are they finally starting to listen to Lindy Ruff? What's going on? You made the point that pressure's off, and, you know, somebody answers.
Scheduling, bounces, it could be a lot of things. I mean, no team is bad enough to lose 13 in a row, but it happened. And sometimes the coin flips, and you get the good bounces for a while. And you really, that's why we have a long season, to average it all out and see where you deserve to rank. Because as Bill Parcells said 18,000 times, your record is what it says that you are.
Well,
You are what your record is.
If teams like Detroit and Montreal, and Ottawa can have 7-game winning streaks or more, then the Buffalo Sabres certainly can have a winning streak of 7 games or more. They're perfectly capable of it. But can they do it? And they have shown in the past that they cannot. So tomorrow night, we're taping this Wednesday. Tomorrow night, they're at Carolina. And, of course, Carolina was shut out by Montreal last night 4-0. So, you know, a team.
Either a good time to play them or a bad one.
Yeah. And
They're either going to be furious or they stink all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it's a team that they historically feels like, well, you could say this about so many teams. Historically, they've not played well against this version of the Carolina Hurricanes, which has been a very good team. And I'm a big fan of Sebastian Aho. I just enjoy watching him.
Yeah, it seems like Mikko Rantanen, ever since Carolina got him, he hasn't really played well since he got there.
You mean Colorado knew something when they made that deal?
Apparently, maybe. I mean, he played really well when he was paired up with McKinnon. I mean, he also
Couldn't.
yeah. I mean, but he also got a chance to center the second line on a part-time basis. But I mean, him being paired up with Aho, I mean, Aho's pretty good. You'd think he'd have good chemistry. Well, maybe it's just taking time. I don't know.
Well, and Rob Ray, once again in the spotlight, put into the Hall of Fame not long ago, and took a puck to the head again the second time. And his reaction was what every one of us probably would have said, the difference being he was on the air.
Yep.
But fortunately, he took a few stitches, and like the hockey player he was right back out there.
The response by Lindy was absolutely classic. He was like, "That's the difference between Eastern Canadians and Western Canadians." Western Canadian would have stayed in there.
To be serious for a second, at this point, anytime Rob Ray gets hit like that, I think of all the concussions he took as a player, 5 or 6. And every time he takes a headshot, CTE is working in the back of my mind. And Bobby Hull was just diagnosed for that a couple weeks ago, and they finally released that he
From
had
the
CTE.
autopsy?
Yeah, that he had CTE damage. It's and I think you're probably going to be hearing more and more of that in the hockey. So, on a human level, I worry about Rob with the concussions building up, and even a puck to the face. I'm sure that didn't jar him that much, but it does go through my mind.
Yeah, obviously we hope for the best for him and all the athletes who play these contact sports, because people are bigger, faster, stronger than they've ever been, better nutrition, the whole 9 yards, and it adds up on impact. That's a very good point, and obviously we hope Rob Ray is okay. All right, we've got, 25 games left in the hockey season. What can the Sabres accomplish? And then after you answer this, we'll move on and take a break. But what can they accomplish in those?
Just to put some good feelings for a base for going forward. And then comes we wait and see what the front office does. Because obviously stability is the ideal. And if they can play well enough so that there's no pressure on ownership to say we're getting rid of everybody and starting over again, because that's right. That's not in the long-term best interest of the team. They just need some good feelings to get into the summer and something to build on.
Well, Dylan Cousins had a great third period last night. 3 assists plus 3. That was great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Second period, it wasn't so hot. I mean, there were him and Owen Power. I mean, Power was just kind of all over the place.
Power play, and there was one play, I think it was Power, where I thought he should have dove and extended himself to keep the puck in the zone on a power play, which is asking a lot. Desperation hockey.
Maybe if it was the playoffs, he would have. But
well, at this point, he doesn't have that kind of reputation. He needs to do it all the time. Sorry. But also, Alexander Ovechkin, 12 away from Wayne Gretzky in the goal-scoring record.
Got a shot.
Would you rather have Gretzky or Ovechkin?
Oh.
I would take Gretzky.
Oh, you mean forgetting the number of assists that would lead the all-time records in points just on assists?
I would never forget that.
Are you talking about like if you were building a team, or just
who'd you rather have, Ovechkin or Gretzky? I'd take Gretzky without a doubt.
Why can't you have Ovi playing on Wayne's line?
Well, that's fair, but the question was, who would you rather?
Oh. I know. Oh boy,
Wayne's the GOAT.
Yes, I still think so.
Yeah,
although some people argue that Bobby Orr is the GOAT.
Well, the way I categorize stuff like that, when people try to have like those arguments, like, oh, who's the greatest player ever? You know, Ovi or Lemieux or Gretzky or something like that. I always try to say this: Wayne was the smartest player ever, right? Completely revolutionized the game, right?
Well, there's your answer.
but he wasn't the most talented player ever. The greatest combination to me of size and skill the game has ever seen was Mario Lemieux.
My Mount Rushmore is Gretzky, Howe, or Lemieux.
I like that. Because I'm a big Gordie Howe fan. You don't call him Mr. Hockey for nothing.
Maybe in about 10 years, you could say the greatest combination of speed and skill the game has ever seen is Connor McDavid. But I mean, that's just. I mean, he's been absolutely killing.
He's so much fun to watch.
I love watching Connor. It's unbelievable.
He is fun to watch.
Yeah.
The Oilers will be here March 10th, just in case anybody wanted.
Going back to Ovechkin for a minute. Yesterday, I got sucked into watching a 10-minute video on YouTube of nothing but Ovechkin one-timers from the face-off circle. It's unbelievable how like almost every time he just parks right there. It's like Gretzky's office. He's just behind the net. Ovi just sits there in the face-off circle, one-timer. It's almost always going in the net. It's unbelievable how nobody stopped it.
It is,
Unbelievable.
and that's going to stop us.
Yeah, I guess.
We're going to take a break, and we'll wrap it up after this. This is Buffalo Sports Page.
Need an electrician? Empire Electric is your residential wiring specialist. New builds, service upgrades, lighting, generators, you name it, Empire does it with hundreds of 5-star reviews that speak for themselves. Call Empire Electric today for your free estimate.
Explore your next idea. Blaze new trails. Imagine new ways to do things. What will you do next?
Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Page. Women's professional hockey back at the KeyBank Center over the weekend. You were there, Bud, and on TV at least looked like a pretty good crowd.
About 8,000.
That's not bad.
That's what they announced. I know there were freebies around. I heard stories about girls' teams around the area suddenly saying, "Would you like 40 tickets for the game?" And they had them. They didn't. They only went to the. They didn't go to the 300 levels. But it was a good game. The overtime was terrific. Both goalies were great. I guess it's really odd, and this kind of hit home at some point, to play a neutral site game. It's not like the NCAAs where teams travel. Like, who cares about a Boston-New York game except for a few parents and stuff that are. So it's odd. You're almost watching it for the entertainment without a stake in it. It's not as emotionally involving a game to watch. But you talked about attendance, and this is like the 5th game, and 3 of them have sold out in big arenas like Edmonton, Quebec, Seattle had 12,000. Another one, Denver had like 14,000.
That's great.
Some great crowds. Buffalo was by far the smallest so far. And for a league that's getting ready to expand within weeks, supposedly, for next year or whenever it's going to be announced, you got to think that didn't hurt or help Buffalo's chances. You think that hurt a little bit if someone from Buffalo was interested in an expansion team. I know it's going to come down to who's got money and arena deals and all that, but at first glance, why would you overlook a city like Edmonton or Quebec City as opposed to this one?
Well, size-wise, Buffalo the smallest of those cities that you
Not
mentioned?
Quebec.
Not Quebec is smaller.
Yeah,
but Edmonton's
Edmonton's larger, but not that much larger.
But the others, Seattle and New York, Boston, are obviously
Not much north of Edmonton.
bigger. Yeah,
Not many.
No.
A lot of moose there, but that's about it.
Well, and there was at least one local official, a young man named Jared Cummins.
For him.
Cummins working this game.
There were a few local connections, and there was like somebody who played. The Buttes played the Whitecaps in a game in KeyBank Center like 6 years ago, and one of the players had played in that game.
Oh, okay, that's it.
And she said, "Yeah, I walked in the locker room and was like, oh yeah."
I watched the. We'll change the subject here. The Bandits played the San Diego teams. That was another great game.
Another very good game.
And what a great response from the Bandits, who the last time they played, it was back-to-back for Buffalo. This time they just traveled across the country. But that was a great lacrosse game. And the Bandits are one clutch team. They really are.
They know how to win.
Yeah, they really do.
Big week this week. Saskatchewan is
They got to go back out west, don't
go
they?
back west, and Saskatchewan's been playing very, very well. Those are the only 2 teams in the league with 2 losses or fewer. So that'll be a really good game to watch, I think. And in the meantime, the trading deadline for the NLL is coming up. Toronto traded 3 veteran stalwarts. The goalie Nick Rose, who had been around for years and years, and a couple ex-Bandits, Corbeil, and a defenseman whose name slips my mind. I'm sorry. But they're cleaning out the unrestricted free agents now to try to build up draft choices for next year. So they've written off the season, which is very funny to see Toronto do that.
And the team with the best overall
Mitch Snoo.
The team
Not that old yet.
The team with the best overall record gets home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
Right.
So right now that's the Bandits.
Right.
Because they have the one loss.
I assume it's still best of one, best of three, best of three.
Yeah, that's what.
So, but the league could change it. It's the NLL. They do things differently.
But, yeah, well, yeah. And by the way, the NHL trading deadline is March the 7th, so we'll see what
Yeah.
they do, if anything. And college basketball wrapping up. Last time I checked, Damon men's basketball team 24-0. The women like 18-7, and they seem to be the flagship franchises for the success of college basketball in this area.
Yeah, UB's got a couple of home games coming up. One on Saturday. Canisius and Niagara finished the home schedule, I think, this weekend. The question, I may ask this at some point if I make some of the games. I'll hit a couple. But do the coaches feel like, oh, no, the season's ending now? All the other stuff that goes on in college sports and transfer portals and NIL deals or whatever, I got to go back to that. I can't worry about the games anymore.
It's a legitimate point.
Some of them probably
Very fair.
would be more than happy just to coach.
Well, I would
The job description has changed so much.
Yeah, I would suggest a lot of pressure on Damon now, 24-0 to compete the undefeated regular season and go compete for a national championship. Good for them. Mike McDonald's done a fabulous job. So has Jen Banker over there. Got to give him some plugs out there, some props. You were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just listening to what you guys were saying. But
Okay. And by the
That's
way,
one.
Yeah, right.
That's one guy.
By the way, we
More viewers.
don't want to forget that the high school basketball and high school hockey playoffs are well underway. Flop won the second. That's Frontier, Lancaster, and Orchard Park won the girls.
Might be the best name in
championship.
sports.
I know it is. It is. They won the Section 6 girls championship. The boys hockey's well underway. Next week it starts for the boys at Buff State. The girls are at Maryville. Everybody ends up at Buff State. And just about all those games. And then we have the Manhattan Cup and the girls Monsignor Martin. All those games are on Western New York Athletics. So hopefully people tune in and watch those games. And did you mention last week the New York Yankees and the hair policy? Did you mention that? I thought of you when I heard it. Did you? The Yankees, for years have had this policy where no facial hair, but they've changed it dramatically, where you can have a well-groomed mustache, beard, or haircut.
Long overdue.
Losing players.
Didn't
That was a point of contention and negotiation with free agents and stuff. That, hey, I like having a beard.
Which player did they not get?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. Well,
I don't know if Soto was in that class, but
I thought he was clean shaven, wasn't he?
has
Oh,
always
because he
been?
had to be. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know, but it's interesting, and it's great organization finally catching up with the times in something. And you think the boss would have ever done that?
Absolutely not. No.
I don't think
No,
so.
he would have been stuck in his ways. But, they traded for Devin Williams over the offseason. And from
Good move for that. on
yeah,
their part.
he went and talked to Hal Steinbrenner about it, apparently, I guess, a couple weeks ago. So, and then they ended up talking to more current players, more ex-players, and they finally said, okay, let's join the let's join the 21st century. So,
Well, good for them,
Yep.
and they'll have a better look on the Yes Network. I can't say I'm a fan of the team, but good for them. All right.
but by the way, speaking of Major League Baseball, I heard about the Cleveland's owner passing away.
Yeah. Oh, we lost Larry Dolan passed away. Hockey lost a great. Did we mention last week Mike Lang passed away, the longtime voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins? So, yeah, I don't want to end on that. So think of something different. We'll wrap it up.
Right.
Something positive to go on.
My closing thought is, it's nice to wear sneakers outside again.
Yeah.
My driveway is clear. There's no. The Sabres aren't coming over to practice on the driveway anymore. It's just nice to get that stuff off. We appreciate this warm spell this week.
All right, we can't top that. So unless you got something really good, I don't.
I'm jealous of my dad. He's going to Florida for 2 weeks, so he gets to have 70-degree weather down there. Meanwhile, we're still up here with 30s.
Okay, fair enough. I can't top it, and I'm not gonna try. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Bud Bailey. Thank you, Tony Fiorello, and thank you, Tim Gardner. My name is Stu Boyar. Until we see you next week, thank you for watching.